Hey brothers, Jonathan here with this edition of Before the Lesson. And I want to begin by looking at Explore the Bible. The lesson this week is Kingdom Work. It's in Acts chapter 15 through 16. And it's talking about whenever Paul and Barnabas have a division among them, as well as Paul gaining Timothy. The curriculum says at the very beginning that we're not to let a dispute interfere with the spreading of the gospel, and kind of points that as a good thing between Paul and Barnabas, but I don't see how that is a good thing. It's true that they went on to keep sharing the gospel, and I suppose that's a positive, but Jesus prayed that that his church should be one just like he and the Father are one. It's not the same, but like he and the Father are one. And in Acts, Luke uses the word apostasy, to describe Mark. So whatever Mark did before, it's a pretty big deal. Um, I think that we can all affirm that we should be of one mind and of the same spirit. Now, the Lord can overcome that for sure, but again, I think that just because you keep sharing the gospel, you need to go back and be unified. Disunity isn't something that we should seek as a church. Um, I also love the part about Timothy. What's interesting here is that he is circumcised. Whenever we're told a few chapters earlier at the Jerusalem Council that circumcision isn't a requirement for salvation. And so the issue here with Timothy is he's circumcised, again, not with the understanding, I think, that it's not a requirement of salvation, but so that he can more closely relate to those whom he's trying to reach. In other words, that his uncircumcision won't be a hindrance to the gospel. And a point that I would make there is just what are you willing to give up or sacrifice so that culturally you can share the gospel of Jesus Christ? In the Gospel Project, we're looking at Genesis chapter 11 and specifically the Tower of Babel. Um, it begins by saying that God came to look down on the situation in Babel. I think that's important to point out because it'll remind the reader that if you take the Pentateuch as one book, which it is, that God is not above his own laws. In Leviticus, those who are accused of wrongdoing have multiple witnesses, and of course, since God is Trinity, he in himself has multiple witnesses. Um, the second thing I think that's going on here, and it's debated, I don't think it's very debatable, is that they are building a ziggurat. And a ziggurat is a step pyramid with a house at the top. And the point would be not that the God lives there, but that if the God wants to come down and eat, he can in that house up top. And then he also has a stairway that leads down from heaven, stairway to heaven. Start singing that in your head. But a stairway that leads down so that he can be on earth if he wants to. And these are actually the central part of all ancient Mesopotamian cities. So Babylon, for example, would have had and was built in a temple design and had a ziggurat temple at the very middle. So what we see is that they begin to worship God in an idolatrous way. They want to worship God in a way where he's more like them. And so as a result, God confuses their language and scatters them. And it's not scattering because they're gathering together. Gathering together and urbanization in itself are not a bad thing biblically. After all, think about the city of Jerusalem and the nation state of Israel. People are gathered together, and Jerusalem is called God's holy city. But it's because of the idolatry being the focal point of this city that he, uh, um, divides their language so that their urban project doesn't become easy to do anymore. They're going to be divided by language, and then they're also going to be scattered. So I hope those points help you out in your lesson this week. If you have any other things from your study, as always, feel free to leave a comment, shoot me an email. Any questions, just let me know. And have a great time with your life group and studying the Word this week. God bless.